Welcome
Hello.
back, our resident psychologist, Matt Timmel, to talk about.
Mental health professional, not psychologist. That means a specific thing.
Does it? Well, how does it?
Yeah.
How does that differ from?
A psychologist is someone who has their doctorate.
Oh, okay. Well,
A psychologist is a doctor.
you're on your way.
Yeah. Well, someday, working on it.
So we're talking about Fox News, mainstream media in general. Now this story happens to be about Fox News making fake images to try and scare people. But I think the conversation really needs to be kind of an overarching one about the media in general, because all the medias do this kind of thing, but this one is so blatant that every news organization is covering it. It's funny, like Fox News has become the news. It's like a news
Yeah.
inception.
Which is something that you want to avoid doing if you're a news outlet.
Yes. So this one happens to be about the Chaz, the autonomous zone, as it were. And
or as the protesters prefer it be called, the CHOP.
The CHOP? I didn't hear that one.
Yes.
What's that
Capitol
one?
Hill, occupied by protesters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that works.
They wanted to emphasize the fact that they aren't declaring independence.
So they're not seceding like the.
Yeah. They're not autonomous from everything. They're just protesting.
Okay. Yeah, that actually seems more accurate. And so I guess even that messaging alone is all trying to make this seem more crazy than it is even. And so as you can see from some of these images, it looks pretty scary. You have these violent pictures of broken windows and this guy with the gun. But apparently there's only one guy with the gun.
Wait, now the thing that's really funny to me about them photoshopping in a guy with a gun was during protests a couple of weeks ago when it was white people protesting that they couldn't go get haircuts. Fox News was arguing continually that we shouldn't be scared of people walking around with assault rifles. That's fine. That's just being patriotic, red-blooded Americans, Second Amendment rights. But they know that it's scary imagery. And so the moment they need to manipulate, they still just take that image and put it right there.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest cognitive dissonance in Fox News is that guys with guns, it's like, oh, if they're waving the American flag, if they're on your side, it's like, yeah, good guys with guns. Even when they were waving the American flag and
or the Confederate flag.
Or the Confederate flag. Remember, they were actually standing off against like the U.S. military.
Yeah.
A couple years
State
ago.
police. Yeah.
And the state police, and it's like, and Fox News was like, hey, these are just farmers and
oh yeah, the ranchers. Yeah, the ranchers versus the FBI. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the spin of Fox News is always, here's scary people with guns that are liberals. They're trying to take over, the Antifa. Yeah. And it's like always this big boogeyman. But then if they're doing the protests on the right, it's like guns are normal, natural part of, American life. It's basically just another appendage for the American citizen.
That's how they treat it. And then that's how they treat it when people want to regulate it. It's like you're chopping their arm off. It is absurd.
And then also important to point out, not only do they only have one image for the autonomous zone. They only have one picture of a guy with a gun. They also are using pictures from outside the state.
Yeah.
So this picture, Minneapolis, or they say it's from Seattle, but it's not, and it's just a picture, just billowing fire and all this stuff. It's like, and then of course go back to the messaging they had, when there were riots after that Eagles game. Remember there was the riots after the Eagles.
Oh Lord.
And after they won a game, and then there was like, they're not really rioters and thugs. We don't want to use that kind of language. These are concerned. These are just overly excited fans.
Yeah. They lit a fire truck on fire after the World Series from the Phillies. That was a nuts time to be in Philadelphia.
And that's
they greased the poles. They greased the light poles the day of the Super Bowl to try to prevent people from being able to climb up them.
Oh, I had forgotten about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, these people are treated like squirrels.
Yep. Oh, it's great. It was great.
So,
No, but
I
it's
mean,
still, it's so funny. Well, it's not funny. It's tragic that they keep being like, oh, we need to scare people about these protests, when from all reports I've ever seen, it's just one big art gallery. Like, it's just a bunch of people hanging out, putting up iconic images of the protests and things like that, doing black-centric art.
they got snack
Just
stands
gorgeous
around.
stuff.
They got water and
Yeah,
snacks. Like
yeah,
this seems actually like a pretty legit place to go. Like I
yeah,
would honestly go like and hang out. Like that's how safe this
yeah.
place looks. But like on the news, it looks like this dangerous thing. I'm like, I like snacks. So what?
One of my
And,
friends is moving to Washington this fall, and I was really upset she wasn't moving to Seattle because I was like, I want you to go, because she's going apartment hunting. I'm like, you should go visit the occupied zone. That'd be phenomenal. And she's like, oh no, I'm not going to be there. I'm like,
you know, it's just crazy that you know all the protests have become pretty chill. Honestly, like there you don't have rioting and looting anymore like you did. Um, and the news wants to keep this going. Now, the one thing that they're not focusing on as much is, you know, there was the Wendy's that was burned down, but they don't really want to bring that up because then they'll have to bring up another murder
shooting.
of a black man who was running,
Yeah.
back turned, and shot 3 times in the back because of an apparent DWI. So it's pretty
Yeah.
crazy, you know.
And there's conflicting images about who started that fire. There's one image that the police there have put out, and there's another image I've seen floating around of a white woman involved.
Yeah, that's another thing. A lot of these riots have been started by white people for whatever reason. We don't actually know. Some accusations go from, oh, it's Antifa agitators, and then some people it's like, well, this is the right wing people coming in, and of course we may never have answers to that exactly, but what we don't have is any images of black people starting these riots. It's always like police starting the brutality,
Yep.
or white people. That's all we have of
Well,
all these past several weeks. It's really
yeah,
odd.
I don't think we can say we have none. There's definitely a couple, but it is very far outweighed by
Okay, yeah, I just haven't seen. I guess
police
I haven't
violence.
seen any because all the images I've seen, it's like,
Yeah,
it's the police start by, you know, throwing tear gas
yeah.
or shooting rubber bullets, and then people retaliate.
Well, and the police are trained to shout "Stop resisting" even when you're not doing anything, because
Yeah,
that frees them to keep beating you with a billy club. But I think one of the dichotomous parts of this whole thing is that if protesters do anything, like anything slightly outside the lines, if they're out past curfew or anything like that, it's seen as justification for these heavily trained people to act like animals.
oh,
Whereas these civilians who are not trained, not equipped, pretty terrified, are supposed to act rationally.
the actual law, or like whatever order that they put out for the curfew, actually specifically states that being on your porch, your yard, your property, that's all allowed.
Yeah.
And so the military, the police, all doing, you know, shooting these people with beanbag rounds, like that's not even following their own curfew.
And it was literally, they started firing as they said, "Get inside now." There is
Absolutely.
no time to follow the order. And when you listen to some of these other instances, there's cops just shouting conflicting orders at the same person. There was the couple that were driving home, and cops surrounded their car and started yelling at them to get out, put their hands up, keep your hands where I can see them, get out, like move, stay still, all these things at the same time. And the cops just ended up breaking their windows in and pulling them both out.
Yeah, it's been described as a life or death, Simon Says. And that's actually something, there's multiple videos of that. And one of them was from several years ago. And it was actually, the victim in this case was actually a white person, but apparently had a BB gun in a hotel. And somebody from an outside window saw the guy with the BB gun. And then basically SWAT comes in, and they have their military rifles trained on them, and they start doing that sort of put your hands over your head, cross your legs, push yourself up, and do this. And they got louder each time he like made some small mistake. And then eventually he says, if you make that mistake again, I will shoot you. And eventually they shot him and just killed this guy laying in a hallway, no gun or anything. And there are several instances of that where it's a life or death, Simon Says. And that's really one of the terrible things, because this all comes back to, it's all these people in the autonomous zone, all this stuff, like they're trying to bring up police brutality. And it's just insane that you're having so much more police brutality as a reaction to it. And that's actually been called police counter protesting. I don't know if you've heard people talk about it as that.
I've never heard it as that the cops were counter protesting. I've heard it as police riots.
Yeah, I think they're trying to kind of flip the script and basically point out like these police officers, they're the ones starting the violence, the riots. And so they're counter protesting. They're doing police riots. You know, here's a bunch of people being peaceful, and then they're coming with billy clubs and their shields and stuff like that. They're bashing protesters. You know, that's a counter protest because they're seeing this as an existential threat. You know, because if these people are saying defund the police, well, then the police are getting pissed off and they're coming out swinging.
Yeah. There's guy I really like called Bomani Jones, who is on ESPN. He's phenomenal. He had a great piece where he said, in general, the cops run the streets. When you leave your house, when you are on the street, who's the authority you have to listen to? It's the police. The cops run the streets. And they are watching people try to take the streets from them. And so for the protesters, it's a fight. For the cops, it's a war. Because it's a war for them to keep power in these streets. And I thought that was a really great way of describing the desperation.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think that's what it comes down to, is all of this is coming down to existential threats on both sides. You see people getting killed for, you know, regular traffic stops. You see people on one side, and then the police on the other side. They're hearing defund the police. They're hearing abolish the police. They don't know what to make of all this. There's existential threats on both sides. And I think until we actually have everyone come together and figure out what this is going to look like moving forward, this is only going to escalate.
Yeah, I don't know that the police unions need to be involved, though.
No, I think that, you know, it's weird. You know, the police unions, they're like the only bad union. Like, unions are good in general. And then like, and on the right, they tend to not like unions because they're like, hey, that takes away.
Except for the police union.
Yeah. That one's good because he protects the boys in blue. And it's like, how do you pick the only one that helps officers, you know, helps them circumvent the law? Like it's just terrible.
Most other unions can't protect you from being charged for murder.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not a power unions have.
And that's what this all comes down to is media spin. And that's where this conversation started. Media spin. It's like, everyone picks and chooses who's good. You know, police unions are good, but in general, unions are bad. Republicans with guns are good, but, you know, liberals with guns are bad.
Or black people with guns are bad. See Black Panthers.
Yeah, the only time the NRA was ever for gun control was when you brought this up last time we talked, is the Black Panthers coming to the Capitol with all their long guns, and then the NRA cracked down on that quick. Yeah. I'm going to end it there, and I want everybody to go ahead and follow Matt on his social medias. I'm going to put those links in the description. And then if you want to see more content, go ahead and subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next video.